Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Citizen A, where we wrap the week's current affairs with the best political team on television from a very Auckland perspective. Warning, we're as fair and balanced as Fox News. Joining me tonight, I'm a revolving panel of bloggers and Auckland opinion shapers. Here's a political commentator, author, blogger, and it's the closest thing we have to a Ted Kennedy, minus the girlfriend dying in car crash stuff. The liberal lion of New Zealand media and Yoda of the left, Chris Trotter. And when she isn't door knocking for citizens and ratepayers, she is raging for the machine. Current affairs guru and the most liberal opinion allowed in the National Party, Claudette Hoiti. Welcome to you both. Coming up tonight, issue 1, does the ACT Party implosion bode ill for the National Party? And is it, as John Key explained, all the fault of MMP? Issue 2, the postal ballots are out. Who will win the Auckland Super City mayoralty race, Labour or National? Issue 3 tonight, spin alert, government out trying to sell legal drunk driving and GST tax rises. And we'll end the show on a final word. But let's kick things off with issue 1. After one of the most bruising encounters ever in Parliament, where the Speaker, Lockwood Smith, effectively accused John Key of not being fit to hold the portfolio of Prime Minister by not answering the question that Rodney Hyde had carried out his affairs as a minister in a personal and private capacity to the highest ethical standards, Key was finally forced by the Speaker to answer that yes, Rodney had carried out his affairs in a personal and private capacity to the highest ethical standards. Will this fiasco damage National, Claudette? As John Armstrong pointed out today in the Herald, John Key couldn't do anything other than express his confidence in Rodney Hyde's ethical standards, because if he hadn't, he would have had to have sacked Rodney. Is there any long-term damage here for National?
No.
Why?
No, we'll just weather this and we'll just get through it, because he can't, you know, John Key and the National Party, they can't be held responsible for what another whānau does. No. Nor can they be responsible for what the Māori Party does. What happens internally happens internally. Yep. I mean, you wouldn't be able to, you wouldn't be able to affect anything that happens over at TVNZ now, would you? And it's the same here. John Key does not have anything to do with what happens, the internal machinations of this party.
But
so in the long term, no, it doesn't.
You don't think that it will constantly come up on the election next year? And it's something surely that Labour will keep coming back to. You supported Rodney's ethical standards.
Well, what I think will do, it will assist the centre-right and the far-right to just put their faith into the National Party, and they won't necessarily need the ACT.
Oh, so they won't need an ACT? You think they'll run something against them? That's right,
and their voters will stay faithful to the National Party.
Chris, according to John Key, it wasn't his fault he cut a deal with ACT, it's all the fault of MMP. This is a brilliant spin to deflect any criticism of his handling, isn't it?
Not really, Bomber. I have to dispute Claudette's summation of this issue, because what's very clear is that a Prime Minister has a responsibility to ensure that all the members of the executive, of which Rodney Hyde is a member, meet the highest ethical standards, and that he can have confidence in their judgment.
And he said he can.
So while it's quite true, Claudette, that he can't affect the internal machinations of ACT, although he did seem to manage to do that quite well when they tried to roll Rodney the first time.
Right.
But leaving aside his earlier intervention in that issue, he can very much determine who remains in his executive, and I think Labour has scored a palpable hit, as they say, by forcing him to deny the bleeding bloody obvious that Rodney should step down from his cabinet post.
Does anyone else in New Zealand think that Rodney held the highest ethical standards, do you think?
Oh, I'm sure there are some diehards in ACT who still have faith, although I think their numbers are dwindling even as we speak.
Claudette, the reality is National use ACT to pass all the disdainful hard right policy they don't want to muddy their hands with. Post-2011, though, National have promised no more National light and will implement hard right. Without ACT, how are they going to do that?
Oh, well, quite easily.
They front-foot it?
Well, absolutely, they'll front-foot it, but also too, when you say disdain for hard right policy, I mean that's absolutely incorrect. ACT have certain policies that they have always championed. They've always been ideological about certain issues.
The expansion of the 90-day right to sack to everybody in Parliament and the country was an ACT-inspired idea. That's a disdainful. I mean, even the minister didn't want to do that.
Yeah, but that's their policies. I mean, why would National? You know, National didn't have that policy. ACT had that policy, and ACT is in the coalition with the National Party, so why wouldn't they allow them to get that through?
National,
I mean, also on crime.
has great need of ACT, particularly since I believe the Maori Party is much more likely to throw in its lot with Labour if the numbers fall that way, and it has the casting vote. I think the Maori Party has probably taken as much from National as National's base will allow it to give. And so if you were smart in the Maori Party, you would say, well, we've pretty much emptied National, and if our 7 seats are going to make the difference, well, then we'll give them to Labour. But that makes it...
They will never go back to Labour. They won't. They absolutely not.
Look,
you know,
never ever say never in politics, Claudette. Never ever say never.
I will retract that. I absolutely agree with that.
That the party that gave us iwi Kiwi would end up in a confidence and supply agreement with the Maori Party itself. I mean, the point really, though, is that if National is going to be secure in its second term, it needs the ACT Party. And quite honestly, in spite of your brave protestations to the contrary, I don't think that ACT is going to be in the next Parliament, and that is going to cause all kinds of problems for the National Party.
So how do they front-foot that policy? You think they're going to front-foot that policy just by themselves?
I mean, let's make no mistake, the National Party aren't a scared bunch of people. I mean, if they need to, they will champion those policies. I mean, the fact is that
mining conservation land,
you know, and the voters have seen what the National Party have done thus far, and they will be supportive, and we will win other voters alongside the National Party as well too. And Māori have also watched to see how the National Party have worked alongside the Māori Party.
So you're saying that the National Party, if they front-footed a strong campaign for privatisation, that they would actually go to the polls?
But then we'll have to see whether or not the National Party want privatisation. That's a policy that...
they're national. They always want privatisation.
You're in cloud.
I'm not in cloud
cuckoo land, woman. For goodness sake, if you think that the National Party is going to go to the country next year saying we're going to privatise everything that isn't nailed down,
no,
we're going to give you even more law and order legislation,
what I find about you left people is that
simply not going to get elected.
You campaign on fear. Stop campaigning on fear.
Stop march for fear now.
Absolutely, it's a march
for
fear.
Well, it was actually your leader, John Key, who said that there would be no privatisation in the first term. The logical deduction from that statement is that it's going to be in the second. Now, if he comes out and says that there will be no privatisation in the second term, that he's going to go soft on law and order instead of even harder, then he may well have a chance. But I'm not entirely sure National's base is going to take much more of Labour light, to be perfectly honest.
I want to have a talk about that privatisation, because there are also some iwi groups that might champion privatisation of some assets.
In which case, the Maori electorate is going to turn on the Maori Party with a vengeance.
Overall, but there are some assets.
The Maori Party is not going to go out in front of its core support base and say, we're backing privatisation.
But you're not talking about which assets might be privatised.
There's already, in the Maori Party, there is a great groundswell of opposition to the level of coordination and cooperation between the National Party and the iwi leadership group, as instanced by the new legislation to replace the Foreshore and Seabed Act. A massive groundswell, which Hone Harawira has put himself at the head of.
He's done a pretty good job on
that.
Now,
you know, I wouldn't be so surprised if in 2011, for example, in the Auckland Maori seat, whether or not Peter Sharples actually is no longer the candidate for the Maori Party for that seat. I have a strong suspicion that there may be a quite different face presented to the country by the Maori Party. Well, no, let me rephrase that.
Well, you must have very inside knowledge with the Maori Party
but to those on the Maori roll.
Right.
And that will really throw national.
Okay, Chris, David Garrett has been interviewed by the Truth Weekender of all newspapers, right next to the Page 3 girl, and has said dark forces with an active moved against him. What dark forces does he mean?
Well, I suspect he has in mind those sort of dark forces you see on movies about special forces, you know, when they've got their faces all blacked out and they've got the little black hats on.
Yes.
They're all clothed in black, carrying
a military
force, perhaps, rather than a dark force.
Right.
Or a military force operating in the dark, perhaps.
Right.
A military force that may have one or two more grenades yet to throw in the direction of ACT.
That's what I've heard too. Question to both of you: what will voters of Epsom make of all of this? What are voters going to? Are they going to bring Rodney back in?
No, look, they're absolutely sick and tired of what's been going on.
So
and
they will vote for a National Party candidate?
Yeah, they will. They'll vote for a National Party candidate now, and I personally think that Rodney Hyde's a gone burger.
Who do they run there? Are you going to be running for Epsom?
You know what? I will run wherever the party tells me to run.
But you'd be good in Epsom, wouldn't you?
Well, I'll be good. Actually, I'll be good anywhere.
You'd be good anywhere, Claudette. But Epsom, you'd be particularly good, wouldn't you?
No, I will
Such
go where the
confidence.
party thinks I will best suit.
Okay, but Epsom would be your first choice if you had a list of
If I
things you'd
had a
like to go
first
to?
choice.
Yes.
If I had a first choice,
Epsom?
no, I will go where the party tells me to go.
But would you like
I don't
Epsom?
have
Would you like
a first.
Epsom?
No. I don't have a first choice, and the reason why I don't have a first choice is because I want to see where the gaps are, where I can
submit
fill.
a nomination anywhere you please.
No.
Whether or not the National Party
decision. I don't
endorses it is
personally
another
have
thing.
a first choice.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I don't have a personal first choice.
What will voters in Epsom make of Rodney?
Well, I don't think the electorate necessarily wants Rodney back, but they're going to be faced with a really difficult set of choices. As I said, National really does need those extra seats that ACT brings as a sort of insurance policy. So John Key will be loath to pull the rug from under Rodney.
But if they poll at 1%,
well,
then he's not going to bring any extra votes in, is he?
Well, it's one of those sort of borderline calls. And don't forget that if National is very firm about supporting Rodney Hyde and ACT, then that 1% can quite easily grow to 2 or 3.
Yep.
And this is a thing I think the voters of Epsom are going to tire of. Essentially, the National Party and ACT are gaming MMP.
Right.
That's what they're doing. And they're asking the voters of Epsom to go on gaming MMP until the cows come home. I think the real problem that National faces is that if they remain as close to Rodney as they seem to be at the moment, someone else will step in and say, look, I'm the independent National candidate that doesn't believe in any of this chicanery, and I'm asking for your support. Now, Rodney needs just about all of that strategic vote, which is about 20,000 votes in Epsom. If someone was to cut that in half, Rodney would be finished.
Claudette, it could be you. Who wins, who loses from the ACT Party implosion?
Well, thanks very much for the vote of confidence.
Absolutely, the candidate for Epsom, yes.
Thanks very much. It's about as relevant as Mr Trotter saying that Peter Sharples won't be the Māori candidate for Tamaki Makaurau, actually.
Who wins, who loses?
You know what? Nobody wins in this. Nobody wins in this issue, and
don't the Māori Party win because they have so much more power.
Let me, and not even the left will win in this because they won't know how to make a meal out and advantage this kind of a situation.
But don't the Māori Party get more powerful?
I would have thought the left after yesterday was doing quite well at making a meal out of the situation.
Oh, look, it'll die down and they won't be able to, keep it going.
Tomorrow's a fish and chip.
Yeah, it will be. But, the Māori Party aren't. What you've got to remember is the Māori Party aren't about making mileage out of these kinds of things. The Māori Party always champions their own policies and their own strategy. So they will not benefit from this. They will not want to benefit from this. They won't put their eggs behind this basket.
Who wins, who loses from the ACT Party implosion?
Oh, I think the Māori Party initially. Because they are the only game left in town if ACT disappears from the screen.
Which makes Hone a lot more powerful, doesn't it?
And as I say, I don't think that the present face of the Māori Party will endure into the actual election in 2011. I think there's a lot of changes which are going to come for the Māori Party. And yes, I think Hone Harawira will be in the forefront of